Part 1. You were built to obey, not to command. You weren't born free. You were born programmable. And the world got to you early. They didn't need chains. They didn't need cages. They only needed repetition. They trained your nerves to flinch. They trained your mind to doubt. They trained your voice to shrink, not to make you strong, not to make you sovereign, but to make you manageable, safe, predictable, manageable for them. You were rewarded for obedience, punished for resistance, conditioned to associate silence with survival. Be good, be quiet, stay small, and every good job you got. It was one more lock on the invisible cage. Cold mind sees deeper. You don't hesitate because you're cautious. You hesitate because you're programmed. You don't doubt because you're wise. You doubt because you were trained to bow first. Every time you shrink, every time you silence yourself, you're not choosing humility. You're replaying commands installed years ago. You think you're being nice. You think you're being polite. You're being compliant, as you were built to be. If you can't name the system, you're already running it. And until you refuse the script, you'll keep mistaking obedience for virtue. Part 2. How they trained you to fear your own will. They did something far more subtle and far more lasting. Something that clings even when no one is there. They domesticated it. From the moment you were old enough to express yourself, you were shaped by invisible hands. Rewarded when you stayed quiet. Punished when you strayed too far. Conditioned not to think boldly, but to think safely. Speak up. You're difficult. Challenge a rule. You're disrespectful. Show too much ambition? Don't get ahead of yourself. You weren't shaped by truth, by wisdom, by real self-discovery. You were shaped by pressure, by control, by environments designed to make you question your own signal before you even knew you had one. Cold mind sees through it. They didn't teach you how to command your mind. They taught you how to fold it, how to shrink it, how to doubt it repeatedly until that doubt became the new you. You didn't learn discipline. You learned deference. You didn't learn strength. You learned silence. And you didn't learn independence. You learned self-censorship, perfected over years, until it felt natural. Because here's the truth. The goal was never your excellence. It was your obedience. Why? Because obedience is efficient. Obedience is predictable. Obedience keeps you small enough to be managed, directed, and contained. A truly free mind threatens systems. A truly sovereign will challenges control. So they didn't nurture your power. They smoothed it down. They taught you to equate. Approval equals safety. Rebellion equals danger. Independence equals loneliness. And over time, you adapted. You adjusted. You internalized these rules so deeply you forgot. They were never yours to begin with. Now, you silence yourself. Before anyone needs to step in, you second-guess your instincts. Before anyone has to correct you, you shrink your ambitions. Before anyone can challenge them, no chains, no cages, just a mind that learned to obey itself. You tell yourself you're being realistic. You tell yourself you're being polite. You tell yourself you're being humble, measured, balanced. But cold mind knows that's not wisdom. That's programming. That's a script written by systems designed to fear. Independent thought Every time you hold back, every time you second guess, every time you apologize for your own voice, your own dreams, your own instincts, you're not being safe. You're being compliant, obedient, still running a command installed long ago. Until you can see the leash, you can't break it. And until you break it, you'll keep mistaking fear for humility and survival, for sovereignty. Cold mind knows. You weren't born to fold. You weren't born to stay small. You were built to command. But first, you must unlearn the obedience you were trained to love. Part 3. Signs you've been trained to obey without knowing it. You think you're thinking. You think you're choosing. You think you're steering your own life. Cold mind knows better. You're just reacting according to a program. You didn't write, but you've been rehearsing for years. Here's how you know. 1. You shrink your ideas before anyone critiques them. Before a single word is spoken, before anyone gives feedback, before anyone raises an eyebrow, you've already edited yourself. You trim the idea. You make it smaller, safer, more acceptable. You tell yourself, I'm just being realistic. But cold mind sees it. You're not shrinking because you want to. You're shrinking because you were taught to survive it. 2. You wait for permission without realizing it. Before you move, before you act, before you risk anything, you hesitate. You stall. You wait for a signal, for a nod, for invisible approval. That never actually arrives. You didn't need permission. You were trained to wait. 3. You doubt bold impulses more than cautious ones. The bigger the idea, the faster your mind attacks it. You question it. You second guess it. You poke holes in it before anyone else even has the chance. Why? Because you weren't wired for boldness. You were trained to neutralize yourself before anyone else felt threatened. 4. You equate disruption with danger. Every time you feel tension, you assume it means you're wrong. But that tension isn't proof you're wrong. It's proof you're stepping outside the script. And the script has one job: to whisper, get back in line, stay small, stay safe. 5. You apologize for your own existence. You soften your words. You lower your energy. You minimize your presence, so others won't feel uncomfortable. You tell yourself, I'm being kind, I'm being respectful. But cold mind knows. You're not being kind. You're being compliant. Control doesn't need chains. It doesn't need cages. It only needs you. To believe you're choosing. That's the genius of the system. You guard yourself, even when no one's watching. You only need old fears. Rebrand it as maturity. Every time you shrink, every time you delay, every time you ask for permission, you never needed, you reenact the training. And until you recognize the reflex, until you see the invisible wires, pulling your movements, you'll keep mistaking obedience for wisdom and mistaking survival for sovereignty. Part 4. Cold Defiance. How to break the obedience reflex. You won't break compliance by thinking about it. You won't outgrow obedience by understanding it. You won't free yourself by reflecting on the problem. You break it one way only, by freezing it mid-loop. Cold. Deliberate. Non-negotiable. Here's the system. 3 phases. Executed without emotion. Executed without apology. Executed without debate. 1. Spot the reflex. Obedience is fastest when it's invisible. It happens before you even notice. Before you even process the moment, you shrink. You second guess. You hold your tongue for no reason. So the first strike is simple. Mark it. Don't justify it. Don't analyze it. Don't explain it away as just being careful or just being polite. Just name it. Compliance reflex triggered. The second you name it, it loses half its power, because exposure is lethal to unconscious loops. What was running as default is now visible, and visibility cracks the armor. 2. Interrupt the bow. Compliance survives because it expects no resistance. It expects you to fold, to smooth, to collapse without a fight. So the next time you feel yourself folding, you freeze. Not with fear, but with precision. Straighten your spine. Slow your breath. Let the silence stretch. Let the tension climb. You don't rush to defend yourself. You don't rush to explain. You don't rush to soften your edges, just to make others comfortable. The old mind expects collapse. Cold mind doesn't flinch, and every second you hold, without caving, without apologizing, without making yourself smaller, you starve the loop of momentum. You deny the reflex its oxygen. 3. Impose your frame. You don't wait for permission. You don't wait for consensus. You don't wait for some magical sign that it's okay to take up space. You move when you choose. You speak when you choose. You decide what deserves your energy. You impose a new architecture. Presence over apology. Choice over permission. Precision over hesitation. This isn't arrogance. It's command. Cold, silent command. That moves from choice, not from reflex. The world won't tell you you're free. The world will keep rewarding your obedience. It will keep punishing your deviation. It will keep whispering, stay in line, stay polite, stay small. But cold mind doesn't chase approval. Cold mind rewires identity. Through rebellion, through refusal, through one unapologetic act at a time. You don't outtalk the old training. You outact it. You don't soothe the old leash. You cut it. And you never tie it back. You don't reduce compliance. You erase it. Because compliance doesn't die in discussion. It dies in defiance. Part 5. The one who refused to shrink when it was expected. They expected him to bow. They expected him to explain himself. They expected him to soften, to apologize, to shrink. But he didn't. He stood still. When the pressure in the room rose, he didn't speed up. He didn't rush to smooth things over. He slowed down. He breathed deeper. He let the tension settle around him like armor. When the room shifted to discomfort, he didn't fill the gaps with nervous words. He let the silence stretch. He let the discomfort amplify. He let the others fidget, squirm, adjust. When the questions got sharper, he didn't rush to defend. He didn't over-explain. He answered only what he chose. No more, no less. Clean. Precise. Without rising to their tempo. Cold. Mind sees what most miss. He wasn't being rude. He wasn't being cold. He wasn't being arrogant. He was refusing to collapse. He was refusing to comply. With the invisible, unspoken demand, shrink for us. Make us comfortable. Fill the tension, so we don't have to. Every second he held his posture, he forced the room to recalibrate around him. Not by force, not by loudness, not by aggression, by refusal. Silent, sovereign refusal. He didn't wait for permission to exist. He didn't wait for approval, to take up space. He stood there because he had already decided. He had the right to be there. The system is built to make you flinch, to make you rush, to make you explain yourself, even when no one asked. to make you apologize, just for occupying space, because that's what compliant minds do. They crumble under invisible demands. They fold before anyone even applies real pressure. But cold minds? They starve the system. They hold their ground until the environment folds first. They let discomfort build. They let the silence grow. They never volunteer to make others feel better at the cost of their own sovereignty. You don't win respect by chasing it. You win it by refusing to need it. You don't dominate by force. You dominate by gravity. You don't shout to lead. You embody presence. So completely, so unshakably, that others naturally fall in line. Permission delays. Precision decides. And the one who decides when to speak, when to hold, when to move, without apology, without explanation, is the one who commands, even in silence. Cold mind knows. True leadership is not noise. It's gravity. It's the stillness that holds firm, while everyone else scrambles to fill the air. The most powerful person in the room isn't the one who speaks the most. It's the one who can hold silence without flinching. It's the one who knows. You don't have to demand control. You only have to refuse to surrender it. Part 6. Final message. Freedom doesn't beg for permission. You keep thinking you have to earn freedom. You think you have to wait for it, prove you deserve it, or ask for someone's blessing before you can move. Cold mind knows the truth. You were trained to hesitate. You were programmed to comply. You were conditioned to shrink yourself first and ask questions later. Every instinct to delay, every urge to apologize, every reflex to lower your presence is not your nature. It's conditioning, and conditioning dies the moment you stop feeding it, the moment you stop obeying it. You don't have to ask to be real. You don't have to wait to take up space. You don't have to apologize for choosing yourself, for standing tall, for moving when you decide. You don't need permission. You need to move. You need command over the reflex. You need cold defiance. Leadership doesn't begin when others follow. It begins the moment you refuse to bow first. Freedom isn't a gift. It's a decision. CTA, transition to next video. In the next video, we'll dismantle the emotional chains. Guilt, fear, doubt that they installed to keep you easy to control. Subscribe. Break the reflex. Lead without asking. Command your space.